The courthouse felt colder than I had imagined, not in temperature, but in spirit, an invisible frost that settled over everything. I stepped out with a manila envelope clutched in one hand, my divorce papers sealed tightly inside, and a hollow ache in my chest where my heart used to live. 14 years of marriage dissolved in mere minutes, just a few quiet signatures, a nod from a weary judge, and no fanfare, no tears, no shouting, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't whisper, but screams loud and final once everything else has ceased to matter. I didn't feel like returning to the house. Not that it truly felt like home anymore. That place now belonged to her. I'd already packed the night before, cramming my past into 2 suitcases and tucking my dog-eared copy of To Kill a Mockingbird into the front pocket like a lifeline. Everything else I left behind. Not because I didn't want it, but because leaving it made things feel simpler, cleaner, easier. With nowhere to go and no appetite for companionship, I found myself pulling into the cracked parking lot of a cheap roadside motel on the outskirts of town. A faded neon sign flickered above the front office, blinking out a weary welcome. Vasey, cable, weekly rates. Inside, the air was stale and tinged with the faint scent of mildew and cigarette smoke. The carpet wore its age like a wound stained and threadbare, but the stillness wrapped around me like a threadbare comforter. That's all I needed, just silence. Behind the front desk sat a woman, likely in her early 60s. Her eyes were sharp and knowing, and her hands bore the quiet ache of time. She studied me the way someone might study a familiar photograph, recognizing not the face, but the story behind it. A man with tired eyes, no ring, and a suitcase that sagged under the weight of unspoken regrets. As she handed me a key card, she said gently, "Room 107. Don't worry, that one's got a good bed. You look like someone who hasn't slept in a while." I paused, taken aback not by her words, but by her tone. It wasn't laced with pity. It wasn't prying. It was simply knowing. "Rough day?" she asked, her eyes still fixed on the check-in log. I nodded once. "Just sign the papers." She gave me a slow, weary smile. "Then tonight, let yourself feel it. All of it. Just don't carry it with you forever." Room 107 was as modest as I expected. A single bed with sunken springs, a flickering lamp with a crooked shade, and the lingering scent of old cologne and years of smoke. I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at the pale wallpaper, my mind a static blur. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't crumble. I just sat there motionless, feeling like a ghost trapped in my own skin, like I had become a memory before I had the chance to move on. Later that night, needing something, anything, I wandered to the vending machine in the hallway to grab a soda. On my way back, I passed the front desk again. The receptionist was still there, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, her posture unchanged. She caught my eye and gave a nod. "You want to talk?" I shrugged. "Depends. You charging for therapy tonight?" She chuckled softly. "No, son. I've just been around long enough to know when a man's about to drink from a bottle of pain that never empties." We ended up sitting on a wooden bench near the dusty potted plant in the lobby corner. I told her everything, not in a rush, but in fragments. Words came out in slow, uneven pieces. About how my wife fell out of love without warning. About how the distance between us grew wider even as I tried harder to pull us back together. About how she said I was boring. How she said I was safe, like safety was something shameful. She listened, unmoved by judgment, and finally said, "Some people confuse comfort with dullness. They won't realize what they've lost until life throws a storm at them." I glanced at her. "You ever been married?" She nodded, eyes steady. "Once. He left when I got sick. Told me he didn't sign up for a sick wife. So I signed his exit papers and built a life anyway." There was no venom in her voice, just calm truth. What followed wasn't silence exactly, but something better. A quiet that didn't need filling. Two strangers, both holding wounds in open hands, sitting beside one another with nothing to explain. I realized, in that moment, that healing doesn't always come from speaking. Sometimes it comes from being truly heard. The next morning, I awoke to find a note slid under my door, a small rectangle of line paper, folded neatly. It was from her. "You survived the ending." It read, "That means you're strong enough To find a better beginning, don't go back looking for the pieces. Let them stay broken and build something new. I stood in that doorway for a long time, just staring at those words. I didn't have a plan, no direction, no grand idea of what came next, but something in me shifted. I felt lighter, like she'd managed to peel off a layer of sorrow I didn't. No, I was still wearing dot, and so I left the motel. No map, no destination, just forward. Months slipped by. I moved to a different city, found a small job in a cozy bookstore where the days passed in the scent of old paper and quiet conversations. I joined a hiking group, made new friends, even laughed again. The pain didn't disappear entirely, but it changed. It softened, became something I could carry, a stone in my pocket rather than a boulder on my back. I never saw that motel receptionist again, but her words, they stayed with me, etched somewhere deeper than memory. Whenever someone asks how I managed to survive the darkest chapter of my life, I smile and say, a stranger reminded me that the worst day isn't the end. It's only proof that better days still exist and are waiting.